Hello there, and welcome to Digital Factory Dialogue Series. This is the number 7 of the series, and I'm very much happy to have you on here. Today, we'll be looking at technology investment in Sub-Saharan Africa. Basically, we want to see what the potential of technology would look like for economic growth and sustenance in Sub-Saharan Africa. Right before I get or dive into the conversation, I have amazing people, amazing guests on the show who will be able to help us navigate through the journey of understanding what technology has done so far for Sub-Saharan Africa and how we can continually exponentially make a difference, right? But right before I dive into that, let me quickly give an overview of this. So it is a known fact that technology has played a pivotal role in the continued advancement of European or developed nations, right? However, how this affects developing countries or nations, we yet to really ascertain, okay? But then again, in recent years, right, developing countries have actually come onto the playing field. The bandwagon of technology has really been seen. I mean, you can see the rise of fintech unicorns in Nigeria, in other African countries. We have the likes of Mfama, Paystack, who are really doing perfectly well in Ghana and Nigeria. And we're just seeing a lot of advancement in technology, right, in Africa as a whole. But then these spaces might still need more investment, and we want to look into what kind of investment this spaces would need and how this can really help exponentially make way for economic liberation of the African economy. Let's take a short advertisement. Let's know what is happening within the tech ecosystem. So far so good, and then we'll come back to this discussion. I think I already have Cecil Senanotoko on the call, but before I introduce him as a guest, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the conversation, I want to bring to you a couple of info. We have the Sdg Innovation Challenge that will be coming up in it begins in October, but they have a final one in November. It's going to be done hosted in Ethiopia, right? It will be hosted in Ethiopia, but the first challenge would begin on the 18th to the 20th of October, challenge 1, and then the 21st to the 23rd of October, they will have a second challenge. Then we are going to see the award ceremony, which will be done at the 4th convention of the African Youth SDG Summit in Ethiopia, right? Mobile Web Ghana host the Africa Digital Skill Conference, which will be happening between the 9th and 11th of November. Is going to be done virtually. Feel free to visit their web portal, web platform, check them out, and enjoy and get to learn about the future of Africa, right, with digital skills. And last on my list, we have the YouTube Creators Summit, which will be happening between the 26th and the 28th of November, right? It is brought to you proudly by ZPay, one of the growing fintech organizations in Ghana, making a difference, improving cross-border transactions across the world, right? Let's get into the gritty details of today's conversation. Today, like I said, we're talking about technology investments in Sub-Saharan Africa. I have with me on the call Mr. Cecil Senanotoko, who's the CEO and founder of eCampus LLC, right? What eCampus LLC focuses on doing is to help bridge the divide in education with the advancement of technology. Hi, Cecil, how are you?
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
Yeah, you can see. I'm fine.
Great,
I'm good.
Great to see you.
And great to have me. Great to have me.
Oh, perfect. Joining us soon will be Regina Hunu, who is the CEO and founder of Soronko Academy, right? Regina focuses on helping bridge the gender divide as well by making sure that girls are enthused about technology and well taught about technology. As soon as Regina comes on, she will be introduced and we'll make a way with the conversation. But Cecile, let me start with you. Let's just dive straight in, right? When we talk about technology investment, in your opinion, what are we really looking at?
All right. So anyway, good afternoon. Investment is investment. So whether it's in technology, whether it's in lifestyle, investment is always investment. If you don't invest in the education of your children, you stand a risk You know what I mean? If you don't invest in educating yourself, you also stand at risk. So investment in general is a good thing, right? Now, the reason why investing in technology has become so important and critical is because of the role technology has demonstrated over time that it could fast track or accelerate or exponentially give you returns on investment. So traditional investments may give you 5x in returns, but if you invest in technology, you have the potential of getting 10x and even 100x within the same time. So that is what it means when you say technology investment, because then it has that power to accelerate the returns in a very shortest possible time.
Oh, that's great. I mean, the question we are trying to answer with today's conversation is to see could more investment in technology unlock an influx of opportunities leading to a developmental surge in Sub-Saharan Africa? And you've just made a very beautiful point where investment doesn't necessarily have to be in technology, but you have to invest across board. But now we're more focused on technology and economic liberation of Sub-Saharan Africa, Africa in general, right? Recently, okay, I saw a report by the IMF that estimated that by 2030 there will be a shortage of over 85 million tech workers across the world. Right, that is a gap Africans can bridge because we have the youngest population of youths or teeming youth across the world. Right. Let me ask you this quickly. Right, are there opportunities for economic sustainability or economic growth with the advancement in technology?
Of course. Let's see. So let's put it in perspective. One of the things technology does is that it reduces the cost of production. To measure the economic growth of every economy of every country is depending on your output, which they fancily call GDP, right? It's production. So if it takes the farmer using a very basic technology like a cutlass and a hoe, which is also a technology though, and then it takes them what? 2 weeks to complete maybe an acre, all right? So the level of production, the cost of production is high because then 2 weeks of human labor, walking up and down and all of that. But if you invest in technology, an advanced technology that could achieve the same 1 acre in 2 hours. You've reduced the cost of production. And if you reduce the cost of production, then you can scale, you can produce more. Another thing technology can also do is to help establish standards of quality, because then you have a technology that can produce at scale. So then you have at scale, standardized goods and services, which of course have higher quality. So you are not just producing anymore, you're actually producing at a higher quality with higher standards. And if you topple that with the added advantage that technology brings when it comes to communicate, individuals being able to communicate from a distance. So now production has improved, standards and quality has improved. You can quickly pick a phone and tell somebody 600,000 meters away that, hey, I have this product, come get it, or even deliver it to that person. Compared to when we were using our basic cutlass and hoe for 2 weeks, how do we even do the harvest? How do we store? What standards, what quality? How do I even know you have the tuber? And how do I even get it? So this is something that is very important. The speed at which production costs can reduce, quality and standardization can improve, and then the speed of communicating this to those who need it is very critical to the adoption of technology in any economy. And I think Africa has the best opportunity to leverage this.
Wow, Africa has the best opportunity to leverage this, and technology reduces the cost of production. Very well said. My next question would be: Has Sub-Saharan Africa, or Africa in general, seen enough tech investment or enough investment?
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say yes. We've seen enough, but then there is no limit to investments. You know what I mean? Every investor wants more returns on investment. And if there is more room to invest, you invest your profits back and then you get more, in return. So, yes. So, in economics, right, it's widely accepted that technology is a key driver for economic growth. Widely accepted, all right? And if you want to have better goods and services, we need to prioritize investment into technology. So in as much as we have seen some investment, so now we've seen more factories, and a factory has a lot of different technologies put together to make a factory work, from maybe having tomatoes, processing it, canning it, and put it in the shelf at the supermarket. There are more than 6-7 different technologies come into play for that process to happen. All right. So we've seen a number of those things, but we still need more, because we still see tomatoes go waste in their bumper harvest. In the tomato season, we still see a lot. And sometimes it's just sad. A lot of tomatoes still go waste. So that means we need more tomatoes processing factories. So all the other things you see go waste when their seasons are up, the onions, the oranges, the mangoes, you know what I mean? They all still go waste because there are not enough technology, in quotes. So if I say technology, there are not enough factories to process them to meet the demand. And then coming back to my first point, reducing the cost of production. So if we can invest more, we can then reduce more of the wastage that is going on at the moment. So yes, there's been enough investment, but the enough is not enough. It has to be more.
I mean, when we talk about enough investment, right? In context here, let's juxtapose investment in technology as seen from the angle of the European nations and a case study of Africa, right?
So
if we should ramp up. Okay,
So
you get what I'm coming. You get where I'm coming from.
But then we need to look at the gains. You see, you need to look at the gains. So the amount of investment the Northern Hemisphere did into, for example, fixed lines. All right, having telephones in every house, every office. Those investments were so huge compared to the investment Africa did in cell phones or going wireless. The impact of our investment has been more, for the lack of a more beneficial than if we had gone the Northern Hemisphere's path of first investing into fixed lines. That would have been investment gone bad. So we've done enough. Now today, because of those telecom infrastructure, we jumping or leaping the frog leaping straight to wireless and digital, we are able to build services that they cannot. So look at the return on the investment as well. And then let's rechannel that model into manufacturing, rechannel that model into our health sector. What kind of technologies need investment so that the ripple effect will be as impactful as what happened with telecom? So that's the perspective I'm coming from. So people don't feel like we are not behind. We just have to be strategic about where the investment goes.
Okay, let's talk about strategy here, right? What are some of the drawbacks, right, which have made the case for the limited investment in some of the areas which you've mentioned, right? We want to see more investment in tech or go into farming. We want to see more investment in tech probably coming to education. We want to see more investment in tech coming to maybe the movie industry, right? What have made the case for some of the drawbacks, and how can we improve the case studies?
It is a narrative. The narrative. So you see the example you're giving me. Is it that we're investing in tech for education or in tech for movie industry? Or in tech? You are not. You are investing in the movie industry. You are investing into education. The fact that you need tech to get it going doesn't mean you are investing in tech. So the narrative. The narrative. And see, tech is still now taking hold in our subconscious. So when you say tech, then you narrow the investor's mind into apps and what, some gadgets and some stuff. So they missed the boat. So say, look, we have a movie industry that can generate $100 billion in 16 years. I want you to put money in. And when the money arrives, then we know the equipment we need to buy, which is technology. But don't say, come invest in tech. Okay, tech. His understanding of tech is a fancy word, Google Glass. And he's like, okay, but that's not what we need. All right. So when we made telecom the most important sector and pump a lot of money into the infrastructure, which is the technology of the telecom sector, look at the ripple effects. It's even made fintech solve the what? On-bank problem. If we had said, come and invest in technology to solve the on-bank problem, we would have missed it. So it's the narrative, how we present what the investment need to be put into. So come invest into the health sector. Invest into the health of what? 1 billion people on a continent who on average will what? Need healthcare twice a year. That's a different narrative than, so come and invest in technology to promote healthcare. Like, you know, it's the same thing, but you know. So for me, that's what has made the investment a bit sluggish and is going to one side. So once they try agri-tech, you know, and it kind of work a bit, all the money is going there. Now all the money is going to fintech. You know what I mean? Then the other areas are what? Are struggling because the narrative is not effective to get investors to put the money there. But gradually, they are beginning to see that tech is just an enabler. You are not investing into the technology. It's an enabler, and it keeps changing. The technology keeps changing almost every 6 months. So you are investing into a solution for a sector that will require multiple technologies to work. So let's change the narrative. Nobody invests into technology. People invest into solutions. And those solutions require some level of what? Technology. If it exists, we apply. If it doesn't exist, we create one. So that's what I
like
say.
that comment. We won't invest into technology, we invest into solutions. Right. So that being said, would this be the reason why we don't have enough African investors investing? Because from where I sit, we see a lot more foreign direct investment, right? Even with the technology space or investment landscape in Africa. So if you take the startup ecosystem, for instance, right, you would realize that most of the investor-led rounds are all foreign. Okay. Where do the African investors sit on this bandwagon? Is it as a result of the narrative that they don't see the potential of making investment into these areas of the economy, which might actually help liberate Africa in the nearest future?
Okay, thanks for that question. So that's beyond the narrative. So the narrative is the first layer of, let me say, for the lack of word, consciousness on the investor front. All right. So he might get the narrative right that he's not investing into a technology, but a solution. But then it's a multiplex network of things that play. And I'll throw light on 6 of them. All right. So let's assume they all get it, that they are investing into a solution, not technology. So we've broken that first barrier. Now, the multiplex comes in areas like the knowledge space. What's happening in the knowledge space to contribute towards the solution that they are investing in. Now, what's happening in the what? The patent space. What's happening in the industry space? What's happening in the occupation space? And what's happening in the what? Product space, and what's also happening in the country or the location space. So these 6 things come together, begins to pull investment decisions in different directions. So if I take location as the key thing that I prioritize as an investor, Ghana may look attractive because maybe it's a bit stable, they're friendly, their laws are, you know, more friendly. But at the same time, per location, which is country, Ghana is too small, there are only 30 million people. So all these factors come into play. If I take the knowledge space, all right, and I look into Ghana, Ghana, we train a lot more service providers than engineers.
Yeah.
So if I'm coming to develop a solution that will be heavy on engineering, maybe per the knowledge space, Ghana is not the right place to put my money. You know what I mean? So if I take the patent space, for example, if I'm going to pump in $100 million into something and I cannot even defend the patent because the legal system is not structured or strong enough to protect that, then I might consider going to Delaware. So you see the things that come into play here. And if you look at the occupation space, which is, you know, I mean, the labor laws, the tax regime, what it means if I don't pay SNIT, what kind of contracts can I have? Do I even have the rights, you know, I mean, squares to fill the holes? How long does it take to identify the skills I need? All that kind of space, that kind of things to come into play. So if you put all this together, you begin to see why it's difficult for somebody who is living in this space. I don't like to call them local investors because the world is local. So somebody living in this space, right? So if you're in Ghana, if you live in Africa, you have ideas about the knowledge space, you have idea about the patent space, the occupation space, the product space, you know. So somebody who lives in it, it's so difficult for that person to part ways with $2 million. You know, it's just so difficult for them because they see that it's almost impossible. So if you look at those who invest, the investors that live in our space that invest in us are the ones who have extraordinary conviction in the entrepreneur, the leader of that solution. Because if you look at it, everything is against the entrepreneur. So you need to find an entrepreneur with some exceptional conviction, audacity to part money to him and say, look, okay, I know this is impossible, but it looks like you can pull it off. Go pull it off. So that's what's happening here. Juxtapose that with the Northern Hemisphere, right? Our friends in the North, right? For them, they have, in a way, figured out how to structure the knowledge space, the patent space, the industry space, the occupation space, product space, and location space, which is country space, right? They found a way to make it have some kind of order. So there, you don't need so much conviction in the entrepreneur or the team. They just have to make sense. They just have to make sense. That's why in the Northern Hemisphere, you can raise $1 billion or $100 million with a PowerPoint presentation because it makes sense. But in Sub-Saharan Africa, you can only raise that kind of money when you show that you already have what? Half of that money in revenue. So it is difficult. And that's because we need to gradually be aware of the effect of neglecting these spaces and not structuring them properly, the effect it's having on our economic growth. So no amount of investment you pour into solutions, all right, if we don't get these other spaces in check, we might probably, instead of growing at 100x, we might grow at 10x, which is still awesome because we are currently probably growing at 3x. But if you know the big picture, you'll still not be happy like me. You know what I mean? We should go for the 100x. And we can fix these spaces issues. We can. We just have to be conscious about it. So that's why what you people call local investors are a bit too careful because they know it's impossible.
You currently sound like a local investor, not just a business startup. By the way, it's good to have it's good to have Regina of Sorongo Academy join us. Hi, Regina. You're welcome to the call. How are you?
I'm good, Richard. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So we've been having a lot of engagement about the potential technology for making Africa a liberated, or Sub-Saharan Africa a liberated economy, right? And Cecile has just made a very, very great point. So what the question Cecile was trying to answer is, and what have been some of the drawbacks in seeing tech investment or investment generally in solutions in Africa, right? And he took it from the point of talking about the spaces, okay? I'm sure you heard what they said. Would you have any comments, or I should just dive into the next question because actually that will be addressing you?
No, I mean, I think Cecil said everything. It was interesting what he said about how, you know, in the other hemispheres, you can use a PowerPoint because it makes sense. And for us, you know, you have to make at least half of that in revenue before anybody will give you that kind of money. So I think he captured everything so well. Yeah, so you can move on to the next question.
Yeah, maybe Cecile should be an investor rather than be a startup. Who knows?
I'm sure
Okay,
that's in
so
his pathways.
I guess so. So now my next question will be the people problem, right? Away from the spaces, away from trying to fix the space. Okay, we need people to fix the space. We need people to be brought up to speed to know or understand the circumstances surrounding the limitations within the spaces or within the industry, right? How has the people challenge contributed to low investment in solutions in Africa?
Okay. So the
Regina,
people
you can go
challenge.
ahead.
Yes, so let me say, it stems from first the issue with mindset, and how the different interactions of different groups of individuals with people on the continent has been, right? So let me give you an example. There are these things that we joke about, but they make a huge difference because people coming from different backgrounds expect things to happen a certain way. So we have Ghana man time, which means 2 to 3:30, 3 to 4:30, whatever that means. And we have things like people can't tell you no when the thing is no. Like they go around and cannot just come and say, okay, I can't do this. And people unfortunately sometimes will overpromise and underdeliver. And when they can't meet a certain expectation, they're not clear in their communication. So I don't know if it stems first from the cultural side of how we're raised up, because I know, like, back in the day, even if you are speaking to an adult and you establish eye contact, it was rude and disrespectful. So you're supposed to look down and look away. But in other places, if you are dealing with a potential investor and you can't even maintain eye contact, then you are not trustworthy, right? So people want you
Yeah.
to be able to look them in the eye and say, this is that, or that is that. We also have, issues of like pride, where some people don't really know how to do something and are not open to learn and receive feedback that, okay, this is not the best way to do it. Like, we can teach you. There are some people that are set in their ways because for them this is how things have been done, and they are not willing to bend. And then you have also the biggest challenge for me, which is a shaky foundation. I cannot speak enough about how we need to make sure that we are changing how education works, in the sense of how it's taught, and making sure that people are not just taking in information but understand the basis of what they are learning, right? So you have a lot of young people that can put out a lot of information. We've talked a lot about rote memorization, which still exists, and so people are learning to pass exams. So it's a challenge to build, on a shaky foundation, in the sense that if you are trying to put in new knowledge, new concept, or even trying to change the way things are done, if you have a people that don't really understand the fundamentals of what they are doing, then it's like they're just going with the flow. So it's hard to sort of continue from there because the foundation is so weak. So I think also that is the big challenge that we keep going on and on and on about. It doesn't even matter if you don't complete, for me, if you don't complete your full course, but if you understand what you've learned. But if you finish basic school, tertiary, and you don't even understand fully the different concepts in some specialized courses, what you are learning, then I don't really know what to say. And then the last thing that I want to add with the people is behavioral, right? So I don't know where that comes from, but it seems like you have to tell people what to do. So, from my experience, that's one thing that we try and shift, getting young people to be more proactive and being able to look at the big picture and fit themselves in. But here it's like the challenge of, people not being able to understand the big picture and fit themselves in. So an investor is looking for young people or talent that they know that when they invest, they're able to be resilient, adaptable. They understand the vision of where the investor wants to go, or where they are hoping that their idea can go. But they still need a little bit of direction, or they are used to always being told what to do, that it's hard for them to just kind of take initiative and chart paths for themselves. So all these different things fall under the people bracket, which we have to look at ways we can combat that, because that makes it difficult when you're trying to find the right people to work with.
Oh, that's a lot more information you've shared there. I saw Cecile smiling at some point when you made mention about education, and it's so fortunate, or rather, I don't want to. It's not unfortunate. It's so fortunate to have both of you who work within education, and you made a touch point on something Cecile is trying to solve: the learning to pass exams. Right, Cecile, what are your comments?
Yeah, Regina, nice to meet you.
Same here, sister. I hope you're well.
It's an honor. We should have taken selfie. I've always been looking for you. The last 5 years, I think 5 years ago, you were on
I know, right?
on a poster, and I thought I'll meet you there, but you sent your colleague Delphina or something like that.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm honored. A big woman. I'm honored.
I'm
Anyway,
also honored.
very, very.
so you see, another
Okay.
thing about the
Let's go
people
ahead.
thing. Yeah. So another thing about the people thing, right? I do agree with her. You see what I just did? Ghana here, everybody be boss. Oh, boss. Oh. You see that? That is a big problem.
I see.
Yes, Sama does too much. Everybody, oh, boss. Now they'll throw the boss to everybody, and now at the end, everybody says nobody is the boss. Nobody. So I don't know whether we are afraid to be successful. I don't know. It's like as if it's a crime to be successful, or it's a crime to be bold, or it's a crime to have audacity or to be audacious. I don't know where we learned that from. I don't know. My brothers in Nigeria, look, even if he has just one thing that works for him, the whole world will know. But we will keep it. So I don't know. That's for me, and I get that a lot. So you have to slow down. So you have to slow down. It's not a Ghanaian thing. I'm like, me, what Ghanaian thing? I'm on Earth, planet Earth, and I have more planets to conquer. I can't be timid. I can't be dull. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know. If I know, the whole world will know, and I'll be proud and audacious about it. If you're not like that, nobody will give you $2 million. Trust me. If you're not like that, nobody will give you $2 million to go do what with. Because anything can go wrong. But if the personality is that, has that conviction, and can push against all odds, then the chances that we might get the money back. So just to end the people thing, that's what I have observed. And it's not cool. I don't know, maybe it's in our school system, or it's in our religious system, or it's in our culture. Like, people are just too afraid to accept that they are successful. Success is not a crime. All of you listening to me, success is not a crime. Celebrate your successes. Speak about them. Be bold about them. It encourages people around you to try. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that warm comment, Cecile. I'm sure we are all excited about that, and most fortunately, it motivates us. If you just joined us, this is the Digital Factory Dialogue series. We are discussing technology investment in Sub-Saharan African growth. We're trying to basically answer the question around how technology can be a potential for economic liberation in Sub-Saharan Africa. And my panel or my guests here have been so kind to share knowledgeable insight around some of the challenges and what some of the challenges, the problems have been, right? But now let's look into the solutions. Okay, Cecile, you made mention earlier that for an investor or an African investor, local investor, like people say, to invest into the local startup or businesses that are local, right? They need to see extraordinary grit or determination within the startup or the people. And your recommendation for that was to fix structures that addresses the spaces. I mean, you spoke about location, knowledge, patent, and industry, right? What will be an adequate or resourceful mitigation to this challenge of fixing the space or creating structures that help addresses those challenges?
Yeah, thank you. So there are several things that can be done, right? And I think things are even happening in silos, all right? But I think what will really make this take off in a consolidated approach would be to revisit that Startup Act thing that they have. I don't know whether they've abandoned it. So And I remember I was part of a whole session where we had to deliberate on the Startup Act. All right, the Ghana Startup Act. We spent an entire day going through it. I was chairing some committees and all of that. That is a good starting point, because in that act, issues around the knowledge space, which is the kind of people that are being trained, the kind of training that are being given, like Regina is worried about, so that people understand basics before they churn them out into the system for us, the startups, to employ, to become a part of our team, to then attract investment of $2 million is a problem. So then that can be captured in the act. So that becomes more of an opportunity for universities and training institutions who want to specialize and differentiate themselves to take advantage of those niches, can then restructure how they go about things and produce specialized people for specialized needs. The same act can also look at the patent space and create opportunities for law firms, legal institutions, law students who can create bespoke products that can fast forward those processes. The same act can look at the product space to protect foreign products that come in to compete with you at prices that means you cannot survive, you have to die. Those things can be looked at. All right. So I believe that revisiting the Startup Act would be great. Right. Recently, when I had a conversation with the forces behind it, and I didn't like what I heard. You know me, I'll say it. Apparently, they said the department at the Ministry of is it Ministry of Information or Ministry of Communication? The ministry that they were doing it with, the department under which they were doing it has been dissolved. It's no more part of government. So they don't know where the Startup Act stands. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I spent my whole day contributing to this. So if there are any parliamentarians listening to me, please, lawmakers, I beg you, in the name of whatever you believe in, I beg you, get back to these Startup Acts. They've come far. And let's take it step by step. The same journey our constitution took to be where it is today, that we are celebrated as a good country. Let's do the same for the startup ecosystem, and you will not regret it. So for me, that's where it starts from. So yeah, I don't want to call out names, but the entire parliament, I beg you, just take action. Thank you.
Oh my God. There Cecile goes again. It's very bold and outspoken, and I think he's looking to raise $2 million in fund. He kept on mentioning $2 million. Let me head over to you, Regina. Right. What will be your take on this matter?
So definitely, I mean, there needs to be more structure in terms of policy. There needs to be more engagement. Like Cecil was saying, with the Startup Act, it looked at engaging people on the ground, getting different partnerships to come and share their ideas, so that there is like a guiding principle or a guiding document that shapes the way, we are able to attract investment, any protections, both legal, any tax incentives, any special industry that the government wants to develop and will create, some special conditions for. So we definitely need to see a guiding document or a guiding act. We also definitely need to see proper implementation and also education for a lot of the startups, because what I've found out is that there are all these different initiatives or programs tailored towards creating a more enabling environment for startups, but a lot of startups are not aware, or the bureaucracy of even accessing these special conditions is another challenge. So we definitely also look at, as agencies like GIPC are looking at bigger investments coming into the country, we have to look at how do we create and brand ourselves like an Israel, which is like the startup capital of the world, right? And how do we make sure that we also have a good marketing brand to attract the right investment? Now, if you're looking within the tech spaces, you are talking about South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, all for different reasons. I think Kenya, as an example, has done very good with their branding, to be able to attract all these things. So we definitely need more public private partnerships. We definitely need the act which spells out, the terms of engagement such that there's protection for the smaller parties, which are the startups, against these bigger entities like investors, so people are not taken advantage of. There also needs to be proper regulation. And I'm sure definitely if you look at it from a country perspective, if it is structured well, the government can also benefit because there's more investments coming into the country. There's more jobs to solve our unemployment problem. And then the last piece for me also is to ensure that there is proper branding, so that we are able to sell our skill sets, our talents, what we can do, and also make sure that there's proper collaboration and implementation of all the different ideas that we have. So this is, my feedback to that question.
All right, thank you so much, Regina, for that feedback. You had a touch point in policy there, collaboration, and I think the policy conversation is something we should get into in details because it looks like policy is a very, very big black hole, which has impeded the growth of African nation because it's not just affecting Ghana, it's affecting Nigeria, it's affecting South Africa, it's affecting Uganda and Zimbabwe, right? So policy has been a key part of helping alleviate the African economy, right? To see more investment in Africa. But then, right, this is a challenge I have seen, and I just want to pick your minds on this. Okay, I mentioned it earlier on the call, right, that we have more direct foreign investment, startup-led rounds, or funding rounds are led by international investors, right? Would this see more business or more financial or economic progress go to the countries in which these investors are from rather than stay within Africa? Right? That's question number one. If that's the case, how can we leverage the playing field to make investment in Africa stay within Africa and help Africa grow?
I laughed because I think we've had this conversation countless times within the tech ecosystem. First, to your question of what is the agenda of all these different international organizations that lead these first round of funding? I mean, the conversation keeps going back and forth. Is it that they are trying to find an in to eventually like bring their products and services, but make sure that they have a ready market? Is it that they are trying to prevent migration, of Africans going into their country? So they are trying to develop businesses and economies here such that more Africans will stay in their own countries? Is it that they see the world as a global market and that developing talent everywhere still is good for them? There are several questions, but what remains is that we are seeing, as you said, a lot of it being led by international. Would it be different if it was led by local? And like Cecil is saying, what is local now? But if it was led by investors that looked and understood different contexts, right? Because the challenges therein lie in the fact that it's not every international investor that will understand some local context of how things work here, right? And what would happen if we were able to get more of the people that understand the market with its different unique circumstances to be able to invest in young people? Would it change the landscape? Would it be more intentional and not just a pitch competition? Yes, you win some money, but it goes beyond the money. Like winning seed capital is good, but that does not necessarily guarantee that you are able to run a successful and sustainable businesses. There are so many other pieces that come in. So we also need to make sure that, are we laying that runway? Is it just a nice story that, we had some first round of funding, this company, won some seed funding, and then, and what happened next? Even if you win $100,000, 1 million or whatever, you still need to make sure that you are checking certain boxes too, because the money will run out, right? Money runs out, but you need to make sure that there are proper structures in place. There's a proper regulatory environment, there's the right people, the market is the right size, that there's a demand on all of that. So is it okay that we focus? And I feel like at a point in time, entrepreneurship became like that magic bullet to address address the huge youth population on the continent. Everybody's like, what is the solution? Entrepreneurship. Everybody should be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is not rice and beans. You understand? It's not like you just wake up in the morning and you are like, oh, okay. I mean, if you have what it takes, definitely. But it's not just a nice to have. So we don't want to also just be creating entrepreneurs just because it's like, okay, this is now the new solution, entrepreneurship. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to solve the problem. So really, I can never understand or say exactly what international's goal is, but it would be good to see investors that look a lot like us and understand, some of the unique challenges that we have to deal with here. And to your second point, just Richard, remind me what your second point was again. I lost that what you said.
So my second point is we want to see more investments from Africa stay within Africa, or how it helps develop Africa.
So, I mean, we've had this conversation about all the different investment that comes in to African companies and whether they are truly African companies, right? So you have some companies that are started by foreigners in Africa. And then we know that by all means, a lot of the money will be repatriated to whatever country they come from. You have some African companies that have to have their businesses incorporated in the US, but they have a branch in Africa. But when it comes to funding, they lead with the businesses that are incorporated in the US to be able to attract, more zeros. So if we're saying that, how do we get investment in the course? So it has to be investment that is, coming into companies built by Africans for Africans, and then we can see more of it, or in sectors or industries, that are able to create more jobs on the continent, right? And for Africans to be able to benefit from those direct investments. I mean, if you look at, I'll give you one example. If you look at oil, before we discovered oil, there was a whole conversation about the amount of investment it was going to bring in and how it was going to change our fortunes and all of that. But we've been to Takoradi, and one of the challenges there is youth unemployment is still a challenge. And when you talk to people in Takoradi, they say, look, even though there's oil here and we have a lot of companies coming in, it's benefiting a lot of the expats. They are bringing their people in, and the local people from Takoradi are not really seeing a lot of the benefits of discovering oil. So we really need to look at, if investment is going to stay, and who is doing the investment, what industries, and how is it laid out. I know that for any international company, they need a local partner. So there's a rule like that, and there are some international companies that will try and bypass having to do that initial investment. There's a huge amount that they must pay for certain industries, and find like a subsidiary and find a company to partner with, so that it's like they are partnering the company here, but the funding is actually going back to the main company, so that they don't have to pay that investment that is needed to set up in Ghana. So they are also always looking for all these different loopholes. So it has to be intentional, where we are matching African companies. And by African companies, I would like to say companies that are started on the continent by people from the continent, to investors that are interested in making sure that they develop these industries so that the money stays here, or to investors that look and sound more like them.
Thank you for that contribution, Regina. That's a good one. Quite a lot of insight shared. I mean, all the questions back and forth. Cecile, I'm sure by now, probably if you were incorporated in Delaware, you'll be Africa's foremost unicorn in education, right? What are your comments on how we can help develop Africa and stay within Africa?
So I think Regina is on point. You see, it has to be intentional. And you see, you also don't forget that it's business. So you're running a business, and the bottom line still remains staying sustainable, staying profitable. So if you are not intentional about this whole Africa thing, it's very easy for you, the founder, even if you were like me. I founded the campus here, Regina founded Runku here, in Ghana here, in the hustle. We are still in the hustle. You know what I mean? Because we feel that, look, it has to be, come on, so are you telling me that we can't have an African brand that serves the world like Facebook? But that gets to me. So you can keep your dollar away. You can, you know what I mean? Yeah, it will take us longer to demonstrate that. But when we do that, then everybody knows it's possible. We just need that one guy, that one person, that one lady, that one entrepreneur to say no.
Interesting.
And it's very difficult to resist. Like you said, if probably we did the Delaware, come on, man. It's hard when you're walking away from money that you actually need, just because you want to protect some principles and you are intentional about going a certain path to break a ceiling that will open opportunities and a runway for hundreds and thousands and millions of other entrepreneurs that can use that path. So it has to be intentional. And the next step would be, when something is intentional, you can easily identify it. So that is where the public sector comes in, government comes in. Once you identify that, look, these guys have been on a 6 year, 7 year, 8 year run, and consistently are demonstrating growth without foreign interference. You need to hold their hands quickly to give them that leverage, that cushion, so that they don't hit the wall too hard and have to give up and then go the normal way. It's business. If you don't have investors that are convinced or have that same conviction that we need to intentionally create an African unicorn, or for the lack of words, right? And then we are just quick to exit. Okay, then we can all go the Delaware path, front, raise some money here and there, everybody exits, and then the dream continues by other people. It might lose its originality, but at least everybody has exited at 10x what they invested. So it's good. There is nothing wrong about that. That's a path you can take. But for some of us, that path looks it looks different for us. It's not appealing to us. The path that's appealing to some of us is making sure that by the time you get to your 10th year, your impact is demonstrable on the continent in terms of how you've contributed to the space system I mentioned. How can my business by the 10th year have positively impacted the knowledge space for future entrepreneurs, the product space for future entrepreneurs, the location space for future entrepreneurs, all right, the patent space for future entrepreneurs? Because I should be able to tell my patent story, no matter how difficult it was, but I got it here in Africa. And this is the process. It took me years. But with my story, they can shorten that process, cut out the bureaucracy, because they know it's possible. With my story after 10 years, I can tell them how I got around the knowledge space problem, how I identify talents right here in Africa, groom those talents, and now we become a unicorn with this talent. So then those after us can know that, it's possible. Let's use his formula, improve on it. And by the 10th startup who go this path, we become a model. Then now people have to come and incorporate in Africa before they will get money. We can do that. We just need to get 2, 3, 4, 5 to just demonstrate that. And then that's another thing. Now my third thing to close. I don't know why this is. So until you are being celebrated by the global north, your own people don't believe in you. Where did we learn that thing from? Why? So then, if you want to even do meet, you have to show that you've been celebrated by the global north. Yeah, you've done some stuff with NASA on CNN. I've done some time with Harvard. Before your own people will even bring you to the table. That alone is what is showing the global north that you, the leaders here, or you, the people here, you don't even value what you have. So let's convince them to come and incorporate in Delaware where we value them. Your people don't value you. And you see it, and it's so painful. So it's easy for me to go where I'm valued. I'm human, and I'm on earth. I'm an Earthian. So it doesn't matter wherever I am. It's so easy to let you go because you are not valued. Nobody cares about you. They even want to extort money from you to help you help them. Like, where did we learn all these kind of things from? So we need to stop that. There are companies here in Ghana who have done 6 years, 7 years, and have stayed truly Ghanaian. no dilution. Look at their cap table, it's purely Ghanaian, purely African. Identify them, cushion them, and let them build so that tomorrow you become the next Delaware. You see how Mauritius is also attracting people now? Seychelles, everybody's going to open there. So why can't Ghana do that? Then we say we are the gateway to Africa. Which gateway? You are becoming a window people are running away from.
Oh,
you are the one there. It's okay. You tomorrow we'll talk again.
I think at this point we need to like calm down temperatures here. Cecile is getting to places because of the conversation. Quite interesting one. We have. It's rather unfortunate the time would not allow us to keep the conversation going because we have less than 5 minutes to round up, right? And talking about rounding up, I probably think Regina would like to comment. Would you like to comment, Regina? I should I should move on to.
I was just saying, look, so has to calm down, but he raises valid point, and you can see the passion from which he's talking from, right? Because
we see that.
Yes, you can decide to just exit, but sometimes when you choose a certain pathway, it's bigger than you as an individual, right? And for most of us that have studied the cause, you are doing something for a bigger purpose. I just wanted to quickly say that, in as much as we are talking about investment, I would be doing a great disservice if I didn't even talk about how we also have to consider the gender piece, when it comes to investment. I mean, it's another whole conversation, but I wanted to slide that in. That if we're going to change system,
you're tickling my fancy now.
So yeah. If we're going to change systems and talk about the investment landscape and all the challenges and issues and how we can, make sure that we're creating a gateway that attracts, people to want to come and incorporate here, we also have to make sure that we're leveling the playing field. There was a recent study that was done that showed that for investment done on the continent, for every for every $1 that a female all founding female team raised, an all male founding team raised $288. I mean, the gap it's huge. It's mind blowing, right? So I must definitely chip that in as we are ending. That as we're looking at making sure that we're creating this gateway, we don't forget the gender piece, and that investment goes beyond takes away that gender thing. Like, you invest in talent, you invest in somebody who can deliver, no matter what gender they are. So that's just my final comment.
Very good contribution, right? And I think investment goes beyond just money. Investment could be collaboration. And that's why we at Digital Times, we look towards helping bridge that gap to foster more collaboration and partnership that helps strengthen the digital ecosystem in Africa. Right before I round up, you're still listening to Digital Factory Live Dialogue, and we're talking about investment in tech and Sub-Saharan Africa growth. Feel free to drop your questions in the comment section on whatever platform you're watching, because we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Let's talk about preparing the next generation of talent, right? I recently met Regina, I think that was on Monday, during celebration of the International Girls' Day, and they took it from the digital generation perspective, which was the global theme, right? And looking at what I saw was quite heartbreaking, because we have a very, very big divide. And not even talking about girls alone now, I'm talking about the entire teeming population of youths, right? When it comes to onboarding them onto the advancement in tech, okay? Right, so talking about the future of Africa, if we say investment in people or investment in technologies would help groom or help Africa achieve a state of economic liberation, right? And we're not investing in the right talent, we're not investing in the people from now, it becomes an unforeseeable future, right? What could we do better as individuals, as corporate organizations, and people generally to help the young ones get that inclusiveness with the technology journey or technology bandwagon? And you guys are all into education. You probably will have a lot more to share on this. Regina, I'd like you to go first.
Okay. So I think I'm going to say this word again. It has to be sustained, intentional interventions, not just start and stops, not just a couple of programs, a couple of trainings, a couple of hackathons here, a couple of ITT programs. It has to be we continuing to sustain these initiatives, and we being intentional about what are the pathways for these young people. Because if you are going to upskill them, you have to make sure that we talk about the conversation of access to equipment and resources, the cost of data. We also have to talk about the pathways to opportunities and how we can, these people, the young people can use these skills to uplift themselves. So it goes beyond just training. It also has to do with collaborations. It has to do with sustained pathways. And we have to make sure that we keep going and bring the masses out. Because as you found out, we were right in the capital. And there were some young people that have no idea what is an email in the capital in 2021, right? It's not like we went to some remote places. So
that is sad and heartbreaking.
Yes. Yeah, it's not like you went to it was right in the capital. So the gap is really huge, and it can't be just, you just throw something small at the problem and say, okay, we're doing a couple of trainings here. So it has to be very intentional, it has to be sustained, and you really have to look at all the other barriers, right? The different barriers, that hold young people back. What is interesting is a lot of young people understand the power of social media, right? So they understand the technology in one way, but not in another way, So they know, like, okay, if I want to chat or play games or do something, I can go on Facebook. I was surprised that they didn't know what email was, but they knew TikTok and Snapchat and all of that, because they are not connecting the two. So we really need to make sure that we sustain these engagements. We don't do a start and stop. We are more intentional about it, and we're looking at platforms like eCampus. I've actually used eCampus because I was checking it out. So kudos to Cecil. So we need more of that wide scale, interventions, homegrown solutions where young people have access to content to be able to keep practicing past the initial trainings or boot camps that we have. So we definitely need to do more, and it needs to be more sustained and intentional.
Thank you so much, Cecile. Let me have your final comment before we wrap up, because we're out of time. Hope Cecile can hear me. Cecile, please, you're muted, if you can hear me.
Yeah. All right. Regina, thanks for the thumbs up. We hardly get that. Anyway, so I think the idea that, the population perceive technology in their own way is very evident. There are so many times we have to practically force people to have email address, because if you don't have an email address, you cannot use eCampus. And people are like, you can just do it like that. They use their phone number. I said, no, it's intentional. You see, in the digital space, you need to appreciate what an email address is, at least. So we go to schools and we start the whole onboarding, and you can realize that 80% of the population do not have an email. We don't panic. It's an opportunity to educate them on what an email is and what it can do for your life. So gradually, those things are coming up. But what I would suggest would be, you see, the ICT that is in the curriculum from primary school all the way to secondary school, let's relook at it. Yeah, in those days, ICT, but let's relook at it. How can we make those things more personalized, more everyday things that people do, so that they are not learning in abstract? Because I look at some of those curriculum and it's a bit abstract. It's good to let the child know that this is how a mouse looks like, but that shouldn't be a full topic in 2021. The way you see, but it would be nice if you tell a child that, look, you can actually reprogram this game to behave the way you want. Because I do that with my boy a lot. When he's playing and gets to a certain level, and that level is so difficult, he tries to naturally cheat. And when he's having difficulties to cheat the game, I'm like, you can actually change the code to behave the way you want. Then it's like, really? As okay, then I show you, okay, this is how a source code looks like. Then you run it. Here is blue because the code says blue. So if you are at this level of the game and you think you cannot go to the next and you can't cheat, rewrite the game the way you want. So now he's interested in trying to rewrite just to cheat in games. That's a good start. Imagine if all 3.5-year-olds, right, in Accra could crack the games they play and get to the next level. What will happen if those guys keep at that and they are 13?
That might be terrifying for the game developers.
No, I know, but then that's how practical I want the ICT to be. Very practical, the way I want the ICT to be. So that the things that interest them, like the TikTok, that's what is interesting to them. How do we teach them digital skills around TikTok? Is it that if you can watch 10 TikTok videos that talks about maybe something related to tech or ICT, and then you are given an assignment to do and you are able to do it, then your time on TikTok was not wasted? Or is there a way that we can only harness content that is relevant to ICT on TikTok, source it from TikTok and feed that to them? We have to find a way. All I'm trying to do is whatever there is in that ICT curriculum should be very practical in their daily lives, that they can apply it whilst they are learning. So you learn in the next 1 hour, you're able to apply what you learned. If we can achieve that, then that will be awesome. I think that will be a good start for those digital skills.
That's a great way to end the conversation today. And maybe that might really aid, escalate, or exponentially improve the opportunities for an influx with tech investment in Africa, where we have all the young people knowing how to either crack games at the age of 3. Unfortunate for those who develop the games, by the way. Thank you so much, Cecile and Regina. That's all time will allow us. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing insightful, knowledgeable comments. It's really been great. I'm sure there are a few comments in the comment section, but time will don't allow us to go through all of those. Feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels if you want us to have this conversation again. And I'm looking into the black hole of policy, right? That would be a very exciting one to deep into. What do you think, Cecile? What do you think, Regina?
Sure. Definitely a good one.
All right. Great. Thank you so much again. I let you guys go now. We are at the tail end of the show, and let me just let you guys know this is brought to you by Digital Times Africa. What Digital Times Africa seek to do is to bridge the gap within the African tech entrepreneur innovation ecosystem by fostering partnership and collaboration just to help strengthen the digital ecosystem, right? And this interview or this conversation is part of our Digital Times Live virtual dialogue series, where we bring together experienced and intellectual stakeholders to actually discuss matters that are pertaining to the industry, right? Thank you so much for joining us. A quick overview of some of the activities we have coming up. We have the Africa Digital Skill Conference, which will be done in November, I think between the 9th and 11th of November. Feel free to visit their website, join them. Let us know what you think. You can also learn from this kind of conferences. And we have the Sdg Innovation Challenge, which commences on the 11th or 18th rather of October through to 23rd of October, right? There's going to be a major award ceremony which will be done in Ethiopia at the 4th African Youth SDG Summit. Last on my list is the YT Creators Summit. Finally, in Ghana, YouTube creators will be celebrated for the amazing work bringing together or producing good content, which are probably educating in so many cases, right? This is brought to you by ZPay in partnership with Intermultimedia and Digital Times and other partners, right? At this point, this is all time will allow. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Regina. Thank you to Cecile for availing yourself to be a blessing and talk about how technology could be a potential for economic strengthening of Africans, right? This is me signing off. My name is Richard Joseph. I am the lead at Digital Times Africa. Thank you. Have a blessed day. Okay. Final note, the next edition of Digital Factory will come to you live on the 11th of November, 2021. So we do Digital Factory every second Thursday of the month. Do not miss out, because in the coming weeks, we would let you know what we'll be discussing about. Do well to stay on board, stay with us. Bye-bye.